really speaking from the trenches here as an international lawyer, environmental lawyer, professional negotiator, inventor, who at 76 has somehow come back and find myself in this 5G satellite world. As I say, I would like to offer a pathway through the chaos that brings the skill of hand, the intelligence of our minds, and our collective wisdom and vision of heart. So let's begin with a definition of the problem. I think we've entered a perfect storm of at least 5 crises happening simultaneously. We have a health pandemic with corona, a cascading economic crisis, constitutional crisis is happening at the same time, not very well known to many, political crisis, and a profound existential crisis. When many people are asking, will they return to normal? As if there ever was a normal. But the corona pandemic may not be simply an event. What if there's no return to normal? What if the whole idea of normal is now different? So this is a complicated crisis. And in crises, people tend to turn to simplistic solutions like 5G, satellites, it's a panacea for so much. It's so simply stated, as Elon Musk points out, a UFO on a stick that comes to rural communities who do not have excellent internet access. Who wouldn't want that? And there really are true benefits in medicine, telemedicine, linking isolated rural communities, and driverless cars. A dear friend of mine, a relative, a senior member of the Academy of Engineering in Silicon Valley said to me, what are you talking about, opposing 5G? Can you imagine a world without driverless cars? And we're seeing a massive space grab in our last frontier, the heavens. So there's a remarkable confluence of interests here, at least superficially, Democrats, Republicans, the government, we cannot ignore the fact that large segments of the public really want 5G. And it's happening at extraordinary speed, compressed even in the last few weeks. The FCC has approved 1 million Earth stations. The Falcon went up on Thursday with over 50 satellites. There's a grab by the FCC for the spectrum, even horrifying the Defense Department. It's moving so fast, which the Defense Department has objected. And a massive bait and switch in which altitudes at the mid-orbit level, which were approved, are now being proposed for low orbit. And accompanying all this, a remarkable delegation of public responsibilities by the FCC in particular to private corporations. And I think we must concede a true genius at work. We must marvel, I think, in some sense, at the vision of Elon Musk and these other engineers. Imagine a world where everybody's connected by these satellites and every piece of information you want is at your fingertips, all brought to you. And it's the new frontier of the exploration of outer space. So I think we have to marvel again at the genius of this conception. However, but just because something is brilliantly possible in an engineering sense doesn't mean that it should be done, and it should be done recklessly. So it comes now to the diagnosis and the remedy. We can summarize the essential message of what I'm trying to convey in one word. It is the problem, and it contains a solution. Balance. I want to state the problem in very specific terms with a plan. What is happening is that we are wildly out of balance. So the solution is how to get back into balance, and how can we do it in 180 days? How can we navigate through this chaos? Well, we begin with an understanding of points of vulnerability. First of all, it seems that a lot of this is being driven by the FCC, which is seeing itself, arrogating to itself as a self-proclaimed supra-constitutional agency. This program, not only the satellites, but 5G generally, is too dangerous to insure. No insurance company will underwrite the risks. And also, it fails to address any of the harms. It's a free-for-all. The scientific record doesn't matter, but it's so strong, at the very least in legal terms, to produce what we call as lawyers a prima facie case. The business model itself is vulnerable. It depends on huge subsidies, in particular the satellite program, which has been proven by every other company to be a failure. So it requires massive subsidies, $16, $20 billion, and an undisclosed subsidy, which is that the public has to pay for the harms. The public pays principle. The business model also thrives on massive ignorance of science and legal rights, and the fact, at least in the United States, there's a monopoly. Look around. Have you seen an optical fiber wired industry? Of course not. It's all been subsumed and acquired, so competition and innovation is being suppressed. So I think the key challenge is one of coordination and effective collaboration. And the other point is, in balance, there is a huge expanding win, not only for the public, but for other government agencies. This is all significantly driven by the FCC. We cannot assume that the Defense Department in the United States, the State Department, diverse groups, the Department of Agriculture are overwhelmed and happy with what the FCC is doing. Of course not. These represent huge constituencies to get behind a shared plan, a balanced plan. And the interesting and important point is the solutions at any level, the local level, the national, the federal level, internationally, can instantly be shared because the problems are common. So I want to give you a short roundup as to what is happening and can happen at the national, the local, and the international level, and tie it into the satellite program. First of all, at the national level, we already have some very good precedents with the good work of NRDC, the present lawsuit being filed by Children's Health Defense. And we've organized a group, we call it the Balance Group, of some of the top lawyers, engineers, scientists, and advocates, which have deep knowledge in this. And we have brought, as mentioned in the introduction, a first application for review to challenge the FCC's, or the International Bureau's, license of 1 million Earth stations on March 23rd. Now, this whole approval was a blanket license, which means that basically the applicant, SpaceX, can install without notice these Earth stations anywhere it decides to do so, without notice or without any assessment. It depends, and it is required by the FCC in something called a radiation hazard report, which is vulnerable. And we've challenged it with excellent expert declarations. So we'll be waiting for that. Now, the next step will be a petition for rulemaking, because, as I said, this is based on a massive delegation of public responsibility by the FCC to the industry. And we're saying you have to have rules, you have to have procedures. There are established procedures, you must follow them, and you have to develop comprehensive assessment of the harms. In the satellite area, in addition to health, there are profound issues of environmental harms, of interference with communication. It really turns out that every single living creature on this earth, every plant, every tree is a transceiver. And this is scientifically demonstrated. None of this has been assessed. None of the impacts have done. The risks of collision, the risks of debris, the risks of interference with weather prediction, the obsolescence of the whole field of astronomy, which is now being interfered with, or could be interfered with. None of this has been assessed. All of this has to be carefully understood and rules developed for the exploration of this last frontier. At the local level, the interesting thing is that there has been a sort of shibboleth that many local communities have accepted, that somehow their hands are tied. Actually, it's not true at all. In the satellite case, it's clear by the FCC's own rules that they're not preempted, that in the installation of these Earth stations, there are a number of cases which hold that local communities can, by ordinance, pass reasonable controls. They could produce a bond, for example, to require no Earth station or base station can be installed without a bond. monitoring. Monitoring is absolutely key. And this is one of the huge opportunities of innovation, which I think Tim Shockley will discuss in his presentation. We have an opportunity to develop new tools, new technologies, so every person in this earth can be able, should she or he want, to be able to monitor the degree to which they're being irradiated. This is a massive, important new industry and an innovation which will help to rebalance what is happening. And at the local level, there's an opportunity for small claims courts to really implement what I call people's law. People are being injured today. They have recourse to the small claims courts. They can bring a number of these lawsuits. So at the local level, at the national level, there's significant hope that we can develop a body of precedents. On the international level, it's even more interesting because when these satellites go up, they don't just stay over Pittsburgh, they circumambulate the entire earth. Italy, Spain, for example, have laws that protect and ensure access to the heavens. You can't just sort of illuminate the heavens and obscure the dark opportunity to see the night sky. This is a violation of Italian law, of Spanish law. So there are opportunity for lawyers building on the record that are developing in the United States and other countries to bring legal actions holding the FCC in the United States for accountability. We're planning an international tribunal in which not only lawyers from other countries, but actually legislators can come together and develop a common record, whether they be legislators at the local level, at the national level, or at the involving international work. And we can use this process, as I say, to accelerate innovation and open up new markets for optical fiber companies who will compete with the wireless. Interestingly, on March 23rd, President Trump signed the Secure 5G and Beyond Act. And that requires, within the next 180 days, a strategic plan to address the vulnerability of the wireless industry. This is quite an amazing opportunity for what we're talking about with our 180-day plan. And we have made this a point in our application for review, which is really based on four basic principles. The first is, this is a matter of national security. It is insane to predicate our national security on a wireless infrastructure dependent on satellites that could be taken out in a day. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary that the present program would want to put the country at this kind of risk. We're saying that there are established procedures that must be followed. We're saying further that there already is law on the books that the agency, the FCC, is supposed to coordinate with all these other agencies, and you'd be absolutely stunned how many agencies in the United States have as their core mission to protect the public health and wellness. You'll find this in Homeland Security. You'll find in Department of Agriculture, Department of Energy, of course, the EPA, the State Department. They all have this within it, but not very few of them have any awareness at all of 5G. Well, we have laws on the books that will require them to participate with the FCC in producing a plan and rules, some semblance of order for this massive, as I say, free-for-all. And of course, this structure that I'm suggesting within the next 180 days is a precursor to the next stage of legal action, which is, I think, massive damage actions. Because these harms we're talking about are foreseeable, they're preventable, and in legal terms, they point directly to a heightened duty of care, vigilance, and precaution. And we are going to see that if we can organize hundreds of lawyers in this country and around the world and legislatures, you will see how the case to be brought to juries and other decision makers will become extremely powerful. And there will be a shift. There will be an economic incentive for of course, for the optical wired industry. It will be a very significant opportunity, but even for the wireless industry, well, an opportunity to shift course and move to this new direction. So moving to really to conclude my comments, we have an opportunity, I would like to mention, of training in what we've called the 5G Action Network. And what we are offering is a special, how should I say, proposal that for the audience, if there are 12 people in our audience that would like to train together with us in the proven system of negotiation, there would be three advantages to this. One, the system that we've developed with an online series of courses has been proven to win, because our plan, this balance plan, is a program to win. And you develop there's one way you can look at the entire process as a negotiation. You can approach it in an ad hoc way, or you can approach it in a systematic way. So every single move that the players on the other side are making, which I call the shadow game, you can understand, you can neutralize, you can go around, you can let in. And so you will understand how to develop these skills systematically, how to neutralize the shadow game, and how to take the system and introduce it around the most practical problems facing your community. So it'd be a modest investment of your time. That's a little bit of money just to cover our costs. But the key idea would be to train the beginning of a group of samurai who are willing and dedicated to try to learn the skills and work together with our legal team in bringing these cases, because your contribution is extremely important in terms of intuition and ideas and imagination, and how non-lawyers can work together with lawyers, not only with our team, but with other lawyers that are engaged in these cases.
Oh, Julian, that is so wonderful. I can't tell you how heartened I think many of us on this call are today, because we have reached out to our local community municipal leaders and have heard the same thing that you mentioned, that we don't have a choice. They feel like they're hamstrung at the local level. So we are so very grateful that you and the other legal team that you're assembling, all those members can bring that back to our communities so that we can be, once again, empowered to do this in the proper way, so that we can bring safe technology to our communities. So
thank you. I just have one sentence and I'm done.
Okay.
Which is that we began with a dark story of where we not only can see the storm, we're in the storm of chaos. And so the critical question is, how will the story proceed? How will the story end? Will the boat capsize? Will the planet, go into a death spiral? No. I think there's an extraordinary alternative story, an awakening. And law can be a vehicle, just as it was in Japan during the cases of pollution control and injury, of value creation and societal transformation. Every person, every tree, every living thing on this earth is a transceiver. I mean, I was struck when I learned that from Joe Sandry. And this is not metaphor, this is reality.
We are all bioelectrical beings, and so we are definitely impacted by this man-made electromagnetic radiation.
We are all alive, throbbing, caring for one another, connected not only here on earth, but also to the heavens. We have an opportunity together to cause a shift, not only an opportunity, a strategic plan to reach higher ground within the next 180 days. That's what I have to say.
Well, thank you so much for that motivation for all of us to really listen hard today and then start thinking, how can I take this locally and what can we do from right where we sit today?